Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live on News Up at Adesawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. I am Alfred Ocansey.
My name is Beatrice.
Coming up this evening here on Hot Edition, Electricity Company of Ghana to operate a single bank account for revenue collection after reportedly flouting earlier directive to close its multiple bank account. Details as Finance Minister is positive about government's resolve to addressing the power crisis. We have details of that coming up shortly.
Also tonight, Ghana confident of securing an MOU with bilateral lenders by May to pave way for third tranche release of $360 million by the IMF.
The Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG, this evening is demanding an immediate implementation of a 2022 compulsory arbitration awards by the National Labour Commission, which grants new conditions of service to members of CTAG. We have details of that shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
We'll tell you more as the association is threatening a strike if the government fails to implement their renegotiated conditions of service by the 31st of May 2024.
We have the latest in business, sports and entertainment coming up over the next 1 hour, 30 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. A very, very, very interactive. As always, share your thoughts with us on Facebook and also on X at 3FM 927. Read out to you and to the rest of the world here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. There's some news coming out of Seoul. We're getting to that shortly. But before that, let's take a summary of the news from Grace Amor Ajiban. Grace.
Yes, Alfred, let's get right into it. The Electricity Company of Ghana is to operate a single bank account for revenue collection. The move, according to the Finance Minister, Dr. Amina Dam, is to ensure transparency and accountability in revenue collection by the ECG and the distribution of same to power producers. It is also to address the challenges with the cash waterfall mechanism established to guide the sharing of revenue collected by the power distributor across the value chain. This comes amid worsening power crisis across the country. The Colleges of Education Teachers Association, CTAG, has given government a 31st May 2024 deadline to settle all outstanding compulsory arbitration awards. CTAG says government's failure to implement the negotiated conditions of service for its members by the said date will result in industrial disturbances across all the public colleges of education this academic year. It is also demanding payment of the proposed salary grade as well as staff audits exercise and agreed compensation for all deserving members. And former rector of GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adai, is challenging the Economic and Organized Crime Office, IOCO, to go after the Roads Minister, Kwesi Amakwata, who claimed that he had thieves in his office and leave him alone. The comment comes days after IOCO issued a statement indicating that it had finished investigation into an allegation the professor made that people have to pay 1 million cedis before they are given road contracts in Ghana. IOCO said Professor Adai did not have evidence and his comments were presumptuous. But in an interview with 3FM, Professor Adai said that IOCO has a misplaced priority. These are the summaries of the main stories.
Grace Amor, sorry, Ajiban, appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. And there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. We have some news just coming in as well at the moment. Yes.
Yes, so but let's start from the Electricity Company of Ghana, which is to operate a single bank account for revenue collection. The move, according to the Finance Minister, Dr. Amina Dam, is to ensure transparency and accountability in revenue collection by the ECG and the distribution of same to power producers. It is also to address the challenges with the cash waterfall mechanism established to guide the sharing of revenue collected by the power distributor across the whole chain. This comes amid worsening power crisis across the country. George Quainin has been speaking to some residents of Accra about the debilitating effects of the power outages. We'll be bringing you that very shortly and bring you some more reactions to this, Alfred.
Indeed, and while we are at it, with the power challenge showing no sign of abating, government says it is taking steps to resolve the problem, including ensuring that ECG follows the cash waterfall mechanism, as well as establishing a single bank account to ensure transparency. Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam says government has begun auditing ECG to ensure compliance with the cash waterfall mechanism. And take a listen to him.
Outages is quite disturbing. We are not happy about it ourselves. But the problems in the energy sector have accumulated for years. We have addressed some of these challenges, but some of them are also emerging that needs immediate attention. And so under the leadership of His Excellency the President, we have agreed to a number of measures that we have started implementing. And in due course, very, very soon, the people of Ghana will see the results of these interventions, particularly the cash waterfall mechanism, which faced some challenges, is being repositioned to deliver and to achieve its objective. The revenue collection by ECG really has improved, but we haven't gotten to where we want to get to. We want ECG to collect, to populate the cash waterfall mechanism to the levels that can provide cash flow to all the other SOEs in the value chain, and that can also pay for fuel, and that can pay for the power IPPs are providing. We are almost there, and very soon the people of Ghana will see the results. To bring accountability and transparency to bear on the cash waterfall mechanism, we have started auditing the cash waterfall, and we are also required to publish the findings from the audit. We've already done one audit and we've published the findings. We are going to continue to do that so that we can bring transparency and accountability, so that all revenues meant for the cash waterfall goes to the cash waterfall for the purpose for which it was created. We've also established a single collection account. Therefore, ECG will not collect revenue through the many accounts that they operate. Everything will come through a single collection account, so it is easier for all of us to track.
So that's the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, there. So it's clear what government intends to do or is doing in response to some of the issues that came up after the many concerns about the electricity company of Ghana and matters arising with respect to the doomsday that is ongoing. In fact, still a number of people experiencing power outages. One of the issues that came up is the ECG operating multiple accounts in contravention to that particular directive that government gave. And that's what the likes of Edward Bauer, who is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, also indicating that beyond that directive to the board to pay a fine, which flies in the face of the law, the broader issues of the ECG also flouting certain regulations must also be of concern in terms of analyzing the issue. So this is what Edward Bauer had to say in that particular issue.
We had spoken about the fact that, and that was when Kojopo was here, that the current power subsector challenges is as a result of finance. And that was what we all spoke about here.
Kojopo did not deny that.
No, he can't deny that.
Precisely.
Yeah, he can't deny that.
Precisely, yes.
Now, and the issue was because one of the reasons why we are not being able to give money to the players within the value chain to at least meet their operational cost was because the cash waterfall mechanism was not working. Because we want to resolve the issue, isn't it? The cash waterfall mechanism is not working. You have a group of people who are running the company that takes care of the cash waterfall mechanism. And the report, based on just what ECG is, remember that these determination were based on PURC gleaning through the documents that they asked for. You remember they gave deadlines and they asked for. So that's what they gleaned through. And they were able to establish that, for example, if you take the category B, which is made up of the state-owned agencies, that from August till now, they have not been paid. From August till February, they have not been paid. It was only in March that they put about some amount of money, about 400 and something million, into the account. So it has been established. So if we are supposed to resolve this issue, we first have to deal with the indiscipline within what they call it, ECG. Because I use the word indiscipline because all of you have agreed that in the first place, you don't even meet the payment. When they invoice you, you are unable to pay all the monies. But they are saying that, look, even if you cannot pay all, the money that you get, put it in the place and then distribute it based on a predetermined formula. And in this case, they have a category A and category B. The category A made up of the IPPs, and the category B made up of what they call it, the state-owned agencies. And you remember that is always the crumbs that are left after they have paid the 6 IPPs. So the crumbs that are left that they give to the category B people. However, Ministry of Finance is supposed to augment that money with some payment. Indeed, the audit suggested that they were supposed to put about 200 million in addition to what was left for the category B. Ministry of Finance has not done it. That is a problem. And so until we get this, and I have indicated that until we have a situation where we can resolve that. And that is what, for me, is the question. It's not about the technicalities, and that's what I said. It's not about the technicalities, who is supposed to be surcharged, who's not supposed to be surcharged. In any case, that money, do you know where the money was going to go to? It was going to go into the fuel account. And the fuel account is still going to be used in procuring fuel to generate power for consumers. So it was not like the fine was coming to PURC. PURC said, look, we'll fine you individually. We'll take the money and buy fuel and generate power for the country because of the fact that you, as a body that gives policy directives, I mean, it cannot be said that the board was not aware, for example, that they were not putting the cash waterfall, the money inside the, what do you call it, the cash waterfall mechanism. It can be said that as a board, you would not know that after they gave a directive, the president who appointed you, remember that the board is appointed by the president. The president who appointed you says that run a single account, and consistently you have the chief, the MD, come to report to you, because that's the very reason why the MD is part of the board, come to report to you and indicate that he's running 61 accounts, and you are quiet.
So that's Edward Bauer, who is a member of Parliament for the Bongo constituency, and then also a member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, talking about the ECG running 61 accounts. And that's one of the issues that the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission raised. That is also in response to what the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Aminadam, has been saying today, that government has now decided that ensure that the ECG follows this cash waterfall mechanism, as well as the establishing of a single bank account to ensure transparency as against the 61 accounts that the ECG is running right now. So this is one that we'll keep an eye on. Stay with us here on Hot Edition, because John Jinapo, who is the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, is going to be joining us as we go on here on Hot Edition.
But before we reconnect to him, the government says it expects a draft memorandum of understanding from Ghana's bilateral creditors in May on a restructuring deal. The MOU, once signed, would cement a deal to restructure $5.4 billion of loans with official creditors, including China and France, agreed in January. The restructuring is a milestone in the country's quest for debt relief as it tries to get out of the economic difficulty. The move should unlock further tranches of its $3 billion program with the IMF. The country expects to receive some $360 million third tranche release under the program. Speaking on the sidelines of the IMF and World Bank spring meetings in Washington, Dr. Aminadam said that he was confident the IMF's executive board will approve in June the review of its staff-level agreement.
By October last year, if you considered what offer we received from the bondholders, that would have breached the threshold by about 5 percentage points So if you now narrowed it to about 1 percentage point, that tells you the effort that both bondholders and the government of Ghana put into this negotiation. And so we are working together again to come out with a scenario that will meet the threshold.
And you heard the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, will be connecting to an economist very shortly to give us his perspective as regards where we've reached and whether or not these arrangements we are making would be acceptable before the creditors that the country is trying to reach agreement with. And yes, bring you that analysis and indeed where we are and what we should do to get where we have to get to, Alfred.
Indeed, and hopefully, and good thing is that Professor Patrick Esuming is joining us now on the telephone for a conversation on this matter. Good evening, Professor Patrick Esuming, if you can hear us.
Good evening, and good evening to our cherished listeners.
Dr. Esuming, thank you so much for joining us once again. Just listening to the Finance Minister and indeed the numbers we have on the ground, I'm wondering what your interpretations are, whether or not what have been put on the table would be accepted by the creditors first off.
Well, first of all, I think what the numbers that the Finance Minister has put out looks like, from our point of view, the best that we can offer. My sense is that it's probably part of the negotiations. It doesn't look like the bondholders will readily accept that. You get the sense that it's something that will be negotiated. But from our point of view, it looks like, you don't go into negotiation looking for the minimum you require. You just ask for as much as you can, and then after the back and forth, you hope that you ultimately settle for the minimum that you require.
Prof, congratulations. Just noting that indeed you're a professor, but just want to move on from your initial comment. The Finance Minister is talking about June, hoping that, this MOU will be signed in June. Look at the timelines he has and indeed the kind of work that we need to put in before the MOU is signed for the release of the third tranche. Are these timelines realistic?
Yes, I think so. Even though I just feel that we've kind of moved from the opposite situation with the previous finance minister to one opposite to another. I think the previous finance minister was very reluctant to share information on progress with Ghanaians. It appears that this one has probably gone to the other extreme. I think so. Yes, his timeline looks. Practical and achievable, but I think with these, you don't really want to be announcing detail until you've reached the finality. Given that the general framework was agreed back in January, and these discussions should focus more on the specific details. And then, so I think that it's definitely achievable. June is definitely achievable. I think when I spoke to you the last time, I expressed a similar sentiment that I would be surprised if we're able to get an agreement done before May. So that's consistent with the timeline the finance minister is giving.
I see. But if you hear the IMF mission chief to Ghana, Stefan Rode, say that Ghana's economy has seen its worst levels and is now set for full recovery, and this projection, although he indicated quite clearly, is based on the government's continuing to implement the IMF program the way it has been done over the past year, then the IMF can say that we have now seen the worst of Ghana's economy. Does that reflect the reality of the situation as we're faced with now?
Not at all. I don't think so at all. I think, you see, the IMF focuses on particular kind of macroeconomic indicators. So it's looking at the government fiscal position, it's looking at the growth rate, it's looking at the stability of the currency, it's looking at the international reserve position. So when you look at those indicators, you conclude that there's been progress. There's no two ways about that. They are way better than where we started last year. But at the same time, what we have done to ensure that those indicators are looking better has actually hurt Ghanaian businesses and Ghanaian households. So if you are only looking at macroeconomic indicators, you would think that, okay, probably the worst is over. But some of the things that we have done in terms of, for instance, the businesses, the new taxes that they are facing, and how bad the business environment has become, these effects are going to bite going forward. And one specific area that I think, they don't talk about too much, we are glossing over, is the energy sector problems. Even though we may have made progress in other areas, the energy sector difficulties are still there. And we see that the doomsday appears to be coming back. And then even within the macroeconomic indicators that the IMF tend to focus on, if you look at the growth rate projection, for instance, last year, we grew more than the IMF projected. But last year's growth rate was still lower than 2022. And we all saw 2022 as a very bad year. So you say we have improved relative to expectations, not relative to our experience in the past. So when we put all of this together, of course, the IMF, together with the Ministry of Finance, their incentive is to project a good image, that the program that Ghana is embarking on is yielding results. But I think it's way too early to start saying that we've turned that kind of corner and then the worst is past us. I don't think many Ghanaians will agree with that sentiment.
So growth, yes, I mean, the IMF is looking at growth doing relatively better than they say they even forecast. But this growth has been achieved on the back of the extreme sacrifices that the Ghanaian people have made and are still making, and then also the serious impact of these taxes and so on businesses, essentially. That's what's happening.
Exactly, that's what is happening. So Ghanaians have made huge sacrifices. They are reeling. You notice that when we went for this program, the government decided to shift a lot of the heavy lifting, especially on the fiscal side, on Ghanaians, on Ghanaian businesses and households. So we've seen a multiplicity of taxes. And then don't forget, we also did a domestic debt exchange. That, while helping to improve our debt situation, it actually pushed a lot of the debt to ordinary business, especially the banking sector. So all of those have weakened the private sector. Even though the government's finances look better, it has weakened the private sector, and its full impact has not been felt. So when you look at those broad macroeconomic indicators, you think that the worst is over. I don't think that is the case at all.
What would be the essence of a good growth rate, statistically, to the Ghanaian who is suffering, really?
So we cannot underestimate the importance of growth. Growth rate matters. There's no two ways about that. When the economy is growing, it means that we are generating more economic activity. And it is from that we generate incomes. So it means incomes are growing. The problem that we've had is that we notice that some of the highest growing sectors of the Ghanaian economy these days are controlled by non-Ghanaians. So, for instance, when we see mining is seeing a boom, when we see, for instance, oil, even though I'm not saying oil has been growing, but when we see certain sectors growing, and those are sectors where Ghanaian participation is extremely minimal. Ghanaians are mostly concentrated in the informal sector, which is really reeling. Small businesses, medium-scale businesses, they are reeling. So, in some sense, you see that the growth you are growing and it's good, but because the economy or the participation of Ghanaians in the sectors that are actually doing well is very minimal. You don't really see the impact. That's why, sometimes you've seen what people call jobless growth, or people say they are not feeling the macroeconomic impact in their pocket. That's because over time, we built an economy that is mostly controlled by foreigners, and then there's no direct linkages to the sectors that Ghanaians are doing well. The mining sector has largely become enclave. So when mining is doing well, you don't see it filtering through other sectors of the economy. So no two ways about that. The growth matters, but the character and the nature of the growth is even more important.
That's a very critical point that you're making there. Beatrice, you
Indeed, I was just coming in. I'm just looking at the data from the World Bank, which is projecting that by 2026 we should have a potential long-term growth of approximately 5% and have our deficit projected to decline to 5% as in terms of towards GDP in 2024. And looking at the ongoing fiscal consolidation, you've just talked about how relevant growth is to us. Looking at these projections and the current numbers we have and the circumstances, do you expect this to happen? And how much can it improve the ordinary life that you're talking about here?
So I think broadly, the growth projections coming from the World Bank, I think the last time I checked it was 3.8 or so. And then the IMF is predicting something slightly higher. Now, if you look at the fact that historically those institutions tend to project lower numbers, they tend to be more conservative than it turns out, then, there's some pitches in that those numbers are actually realistic. But when you also look at how things are going to turn out, you get the sense that because this is an election year, in the second half of the year, we are likely to see a lot more government spending, especially in the infrastructure sector. In fact, you would expect that the moment we finish the domestic debt exchange, as you know, the overall debt restructuring, especially the foreign sector, you notice that a lot of projects, especially road and other infrastructure projects, have been put on hold since we decided to suspend our debt payment. You expect that towards July or probably August, you should expect that these negotiations are completed. And then the government would have made savings. It will give it more fiscal space because now once we have debt reduction, there's more fiscal space for the government to spend. And then also the hold will be lifted. So you expect that towards the end, especially construction sector, should see some boom. So that might be enough. The only question is the efficiency of election-related spending. When we are in election year, we may spend a lot, but the economy tends to worsen because, we are not doing the required value for money analysis, and we are not investing in areas that we've talked about carefully to generate long-term growth. So, yes, we might see, especially in the second half of the year, I expect that we see a stronger growth performance, mostly driven by the government sector. But the private sector, where majority of Ghanaians are, I don't think they are going to see a lot of relief anytime soon. So the benefit and the impact of that growth on them might be minimal.
You don't think Ghanaians will see that? You made a point earlier about the need for Ghanaians to feel whatever things you're doing to improve their system, and you've just repeated that statement there. Inflation has dropped. The government is excited about that, but when you listen to people, they don't seem to give the impression that they are feeling that inflation rate has dropped from 50-something% to 25%, let's say. What more do you think needs to be done to ensure whatever policies are being implemented, the ordinary Ghanaian can still feel it? And again, I'm tying it to you mentioning a peculiar year, which is an election year where a lot of spendings will take place.
So it's true that the inflation has reduced dramatically from 54.1, I think, at the end of December 2022 to even currently 25.8. That is great. But we have to understand that while this has happened, the food inflation has remained stubbornly high. In fact, we know that we ended December with just about 23%, and now we started seeing uptick. And we are beginning to see that the pressures are even going to build more because we've seen that in the last 3 windows or so, fuel prices have started accelerating again, and it's going to take time for its impact to be felt. And we are also going to see its impact on transportation going forward. But I think what is stubbornly high is the high cost of food, because a lot of poor Ghanaians spend a huge fraction of their incomes on food. So when food inflation is going up like that, we really have to target it. This discussion has been ongoing for 1 year, but the government's attention has been so focused on fulfilling the requirements of the IMF program, we've forgotten to invest more in food production and the food distribution. And that is why food inflation has remained stubbornly high. If the food inflation had reduced a little bit, Ghanaians will see a little bit more relief than we are seeing right now. So I hope that whatever savings we make, when we are deciding to make more expenditure, we invest more in food production. Because if we don't, going forward in the next 6 months, going to the next 1 year, food prices might even go up further than we are currently seeing.
And that's quite a trouble, is it not? I mean, especially because it has a direct impact on the pockets of people, and the incomes of people actually is reducing in value, as we have seen over the period. Posuming, appreciate your time on this matter. Thank you so much for joining us with your thoughts, sir.
You are welcome. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening too. Professor Patrick Esuming is a lecturer at the University of Ghana, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. He's an economist as well, joining us with his thoughts on this matter here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. The former rector of the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adair, is challenging the Economic and Organized Crime Office to go after the roads minister, in fact, the former roads minister, Kwesi Amakwata, who claimed that he had thieves in his office and leave him alone. The comment comes days after the IOCO issued a statement indicating that it had finished investigations into an allegation that the professor made that people have to pay 1 million cedis before they are giving road contracts in Ghana. IOCO said Professor Adair did not have evidence and his comments were presumptuous. But stay with us here on Hot Edition, because you're going to be hearing Stephen Adair responding to IOCO squarely on this matter and their findings, or the statement pertaining to that particular allegation that he made a few months ago in that exclusive interview with TV3. So stay with us. We're getting to a lot more of it here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's get into the education sector now, where we have the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG, has given government up to May 31 to settle outstanding arbitration awards as directed by the National Labour Commission in May last year. The association is threatening a strike action if government fails to implement their negotiated conditions of service. According to the teacher educators, their employer has taken them for granted for not complying with the NLC orders. Conditions include proposed salary grades, staff audits by July 2023, all year round work compensation, and top-up research allowances for the 2022-2023 academic year. However, none of these conditions have been met. This comes after other labor unions, including NAGRAT, also served notice to embark on a strike due to similar concerns. Prince Obenhiman is the president of the College of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG. He's joining us on the telephone for a quick conversation on this matter. Mr. Obenhiman, appreciate your time here on Hot Edition. Good evening to you.
Good evening, sir.
Now, so I read that this was agreed on sometime May last year. It's been almost a year that these agreed arbitration awards have not been implemented. So what has been happening between May last year and now? What has government been telling you?
Let me thank you for this wonderful opportunity and then wish your cherished listeners and viewers pleasant evening. I think, as you rightly said, it's been close to 1 year since the National Labour Commission came out with the compulsory arbitration awards, and they are yet to be fully complied with. And when you look at the Labour Act 2003, 164, Section 4, that is Act 651, it tells you clear that when the Commission comes out with an order, it is binding on both parties that appear before the order. So on our part, when we were asked to call off the strike immediately, we complied by calling off the strike. So we are surprised that almost 1 year down the line, those terms are yet to be complied with. And we took steps to even write to the National Labour Commission to draw their attention that the same speed with which they ran to court, to High Court, to get orders to compel people to comply. Current one being when the NAGRAT and CCT went on strike and the NLC asked them to go back to work and they declined. They went back to the High Court, took orders to compel them to go back to work. We expected them to have done same by going to court to get orders to compel government to, as it were, comply. So that's why, not wanting to take the public by storm, we are bringing to the public the kind of unfairness that we are going through. Because eventually when we get to a point that our people take actions to define or to mean that enough is enough, then people wouldn't blame us. And another interesting development is the fact that when we went on strike, salaries got frozen. After we had called off the strike and done the work that we ought to have done around the period, you know, the salary upon the directives of the minister, the salaries has been restored. As we speak now, wanting to make strike something that strike action that the members will not like, they have implemented that one in a fashion as to deny people, some section of people, that salary, including my good self, Prince Obengima, State President. As we speak now, my August salary still remains frozen, together with a lot of people in the system, and we think it is unfair. So that is why we are sharing this with the public.
I see. So has there been any reason why these salaries have not been paid? Have they told you?
They have to tell us.
But have you asked questions? Have you found out?
We know that it's deliberate to make strike action unpleasant for our members. So eventually, if we have to go on strike, people will look at what happened to their salaries when we went on strike. But this one will rather steal our members into action, so that we know that we have this we are ultimate. It's unfair. It's absolutely whoever is behind that. I think Subao is head the shape to decide that somebody went on legitimate strike action to demand for his right. The minister ordered that the salary should be restored, and you decide that the salary, you are not going to restore the salary of a section of members, including the president. I think it's unfair. They have to explain why that has been done.
No, so the reason why
this to the public.
I see. The reason why I asked that, beyond bringing this to the public, obviously it's a good move. Yes, we know now. But the minister gave a directive that all of you, your salary should be paid for the period that you are on strike, contrary to what the directive from the NLC was. Now, that directive has not been complied with fully. Some of your members have been paid, others have not been paid. Have you gone back to the minister who gave this directive to let him know that, listen, this directive that you gave has not been fully complied with? Even me, the president, I have not received my salary within this period. Has that been done? Hello, Ms. Ayman, I'm losing you. If you could repeat that for me. Hello? Hello, Ms. Obengima, can you hear me? Unfortunately, we lost him. We tried to raise him back on the telephone. Prince Obengima is the president of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG, joining us on the telephone on this matter. They've given government up until the end of May 2024, that's next month, to settle outstanding arbitration awards as directed by the National Labour Commission in May last year. The association is threatening a strike action if government fails to implement their negotiated conditions of service. According to the teacher educators, their employer has taken them for granted, that's government essentially has taken them for granted for not complying with the National Labour Commission's orders. So that's what we do know right now, and we're seeking some clarity on what they intend to do going forward, and especially whether they have gotten back to the minister upon getting to know that his directive has not been fully complied with. So that's what we're getting through to Prince Obengima to have a quick conversation with him on. It's some 20 minutes to the top of the hour, 6 p.m. here on Hot Edition. We're live also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Also, we're live on Facebook at 3FM 927. You can share your thoughts with us on many issues we've been talking about, and also on X at 3FM 927. Let's hear from you, and we'll get through to the messages that have come through as well. And quickly, before we get into a campaign trail to our earlier story, former Rector of the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, Professor Stephen Adey, is challenging the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, to go after the former roads minister, Kwesi Amakwata, who claimed that he had thieves in his office, and leave him alone. The comment comes days after Ioko issued a statement indicating that he had finished investigation into an allegation the Professor Stephen Adey made that people have to pay 1 million cedis before they are giving road contracts in Ghana. Ioko said Professor Stephen Adey did not have evidence and his comments were presumptuous. But in an interview with Beatrice, Professor Stephen Adey said that the Ioko has a misplaced priority. I wanted to take a listen to him in that exclusive interview with Beatrice earlier today.
Why haven't they disposed of the statement by the minister who said that all his ministry is full of thieves? The minister who referred the case to them said in August last year that of thieves. Listen, judgment of the Ghanaian, and I can.
We'll bring you a lot more on this matter and the responses from Professor Stephen Adey. Stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's get a bit more from Professor Stephen Adey and his responses to these issues.
Why haven't they disposed of the statement by the minister who said that all his ministry is full of thieves? The minister who referred the case to them said in August last year that his ministry is full of thieves. Listen, I will leave it to the judgment of the Ghanaian, and I can to judge and see that there's no corruption, not only in the Ministry of Transport, but in public contracting and works.
But Prof, Ioko, that statement from Ioko said that when you were interviewed during the process of investigation, you said that you didn't have any evidence of a sort and you just said it as a general thing. And that was why Ioko concluded that way. That's the statement from Ioko, that you seem to have said, oh, I didn't really have evidence, I just said it.
It is not true. But I'm not going to discuss this in public. I'm sorry. I wouldn't go further. But Ioko can make their statement. But what I told them is that they wanted the name of the contractor. And I said that you know, and I know, that what will happen to the contractor, not in terms of what he has said, but that is the end of their business. If I and you believe that the roads will get washed after a year and 2 years, where other places last for 25, is because they have gone through clean one, I will leave it. I wouldn't like to engage in this further. I think that I'll rest my case.
So, Prof, but essentially what you're saying is that Ioko lied even in that statement that was issued to the public.
No, I'm not saying he's lying, but what I'm saying is this. It is not the full story, my full story, that's all. Of their business. If I and you believe that the roads will get washed after a year and 2 years, where other places last for 25, is because they have gone through clean one, I will leave it. I wouldn't like to engage in this further. I think that I'll rest my case.
So, Prof, but essentially what you're saying is that Ioko lied even in that statement that was issued to the public.
No, I'm not saying he's lying, but what I'm saying is this. It is not the full story, my full story, that's all.
Says it's not his full story. And stay with us on this matter. You get to hear more of the full story and responses of Professor Stephen Adey also on 3news.com and also at 10 p.m. on Ghana Tonight. Let's get a bit more.
Indeed, some more, and the government owes over 1 billion cedis for the 9 months arrears of second-tier pension scheme. The 9 labour unions, referred to as the Forum, have asked the government to pay the amount before the end of May, or actually the May Day celebrations. The government held a meeting with the Forum leadership on April 18 to discuss issues such as delays in past credit payment, union dues, and 9 months arrears owed to public sector unions under the second-tier pension scheme. President Akrofi promised to pay up to 5,000 pensioners who were shortchanged in 2020 during their benefit payment. Well, the forum's leadership urged government not to default on the payment. Thomas Musa Tanko is the General Secretary of the group. And we'll bring you that sound of Thomas Musa Tanko, who actually represents NAT, who is the General Secretary of NAT. But a 5-member committee has also been constituted to assist in resolving grievances. On Wednesday, April 24, the government and the 9 labour unions will meet with the National Labour Commission following the consensus reached. And we'll bring you more of these on in our subsequent bulletins, Alfred.
Indeed, and while we are at it, a number of you have been reaching us on these issues of the power outages, the unannounced power outages, the Dumso that is ongoing and in many places. And we interacted with some people who are also feeling the impact, and especially businesses as well that are feeling the impact of this unannounced power outages. Take a listen.
So why you can't do?
I can't do it because of this fresh air they receive, because they off the light.
So why you can't do?
I can't do it because of this fresh air they receive, because they off the light in my room. You know, without lights too, you can't live in the room. And you see the sun. See, it's now like 1 something. I have to go to work side too. My shop too there's no lights inside. So I have to come and sit here. And waste all my time here, which is not fine. I won't benefit nothing. Today is Monday. I have to get Monday money for me to be able to conquer all the weeks by this today Monday off the light around 12. So what do you want us to do? Do you want us to take guns and go and rob in this sort of afternoon or what? The light that we are managing small to do some online work, to do some editing, to print some things for people, for us to get some coins, you take the lights. You take our shop, the shop lights too. So now you want us to be sitting like this, watching streets. Oh, mama, it's bad. It's very bad. In the residential area, Akrofi area safe. Right now, there's no light. That's where I'm living. Yeah.
Nowadays, there be too much. At first, now I do okay, but right now, if you go off like 2-3 days, be weigh me like this, my soup, my stew, the other stuff we did my fridge inside, or just this and they will throw all them away, sake of the light out. Every day, before I go catch house, then the light it day off. So my other stuff to the spoil. Like my fridge like this, if you go off like 3 days, 4 days, they know they can't take off. They do so I know they house like this. The fridge guard, you know the job. So they do so they like the way they affect we need they no good for therefore do something about time. Because that one they be too bad. It be very bad. We be election year to we election year then do so they you know the match. So because for yes and I say, oh bread the probability of you winning I say. You see that thing.
Because right now I have a lot of things to preach and I was editing. Some people are waiting for me to print it out for them. You understand? Right now no lights. That's why I'm here to come and have a fresh air here. You understand? So
the one timetable.
What's the timetable that I don't understand? The best thing is they have to. You say the energy minister said that. There's no doom so there's no need for timetable. So why are you giving us doom so?
So some members, in fact, we are all feeling the impact of this power outages, announced power outages. We don't have a timetable as yet. I don't know if the Ghana Association of Teachers have anything to say about this, the impact of this situation on
academics.
Teachers.
Yes,
indeed.
Yes, we do have on the line with us the General Secretary of NAT, Musa Tanko. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening to yourself and to your listeners.
So let's just get this briefly before we even attend to your issue. I'm wondering whether teachers are feeling the brunt, as it were, of power outages in terms of academic activities.
Everywhere. As for the doom so, it doesn't discriminate. Zoomso doesn't discriminate. It's everywhere. We are all in it, so it doesn't discriminate.
How is it affecting academic activities when you say it's everywhere? Can you paint a picture for us?
Certainly, when let me give you the general thing. In the night, the students will have to go to prep, and because they have to go to prep, they will have to regulate it, because if you don't have enough, particularly if you don't have enough credit to stay on, that is an issue. And moreover, because the thing they are rationing it, if it is your turn to go off, you go off, because most of the schools do not have power don't have that resources to buy fuel. Even some don't have the generator. So the only thing they can do is that daytime, once it is day, you do the works of him who sent you. In the night, you cannot guarantee whether you have the light or not. And the difficulty is that sometimes, because of the heat at night, it has its own challenges and difficulties. So these are things that, if care is not taken, will affect the outcome of output of work of the students and the teachers, because the teachers will certainly need the light to prepare their lesson notes. You see, and also for security reasons. When the students are on campus, when they are around, you need the lights on to monitor whether some people are jumping outside the school hours or not. So you need the lightning system for security reasons. So the moment the light goes off, you're handicapped. In the night, you're handicapped. What do? You are limited. Your torchlight cannot go far. And when even you are going around with your torchlight, even your very light is at stake. So the light is what we call, it's a necessity. It is not a luxury. You need it to do everything, all the aspects of the academic work. You need it to do your prep work, to also get the funds running for you, the teachers preparing your lesson notes. You need it for security reasons and other related matters. So it is not, you only don't need the light to sleep. It's for security reasons and other related matters, academic work, because in the night, the students will have to go to prep and things like I have said. So if the light is not there, what do they do? So we are all in together.
So let's come to your issue. You had a meeting with the NLC and indeed some reps from the government. Are you able to give us update from that meeting, aside from the deadline, as it were, of paying you your 9 months arrears before the May Day celebration?
Yes, so the meeting on the 18th was not the NLC. We had a meeting with the Minister for Employment, Labor Relations, Controller was there, and the National Pension Regulatory Authority, they were also there. We had the Ministry of Finance and Controller. Now, there were 6 main things, and this is in connection with Forum decision to go on strike on the 2nd of May. And the 2 weeks could have elapsed on the 2nd of May, and that would be the day that we had in mind of declaring a nationwide strike by all public sector workers called Forum. And so on the 18th of this month, of April, the minister invited us for a discussion. So at that particular meeting, 6 things happened. And the 6 things were as follows. Number 1, it was agreed that the dues, the union dues that is in arrears for 3 months will be paid by the close of this month. That is, close of this particular week. In fact, the date that we were given was 27th, but you know that 27th is Saturday. So we are expecting that the union dues will be paid by the close of this week, and that is the 26th of this month, and that is Friday. The second thing we agreed on was the issue of the lump sum payment. Now, you recall that there were the last batch of people that were paid the Senate lump sum was in the year 2020, from January to December. And during the payment, there was some kind of deficit in the money given to them. And as a result of that, the president, we did some actions at the time And the president promised that the lump sum, the deficit that has arisen as a result of the payment will be given to the retirees. But the retirees were over 5,000. And the calculations done point to the fact that the controller gave us the figure, that the figure is approximately 56 million Ghana cedis. And so that one also, it was agreed that by the close of this month, the money will be paid to the beneficiaries. So all things being equal, on the 26th of April, we expect that the money be paid to them. That's the second issue. The third issue has to do with the tier 2 monies or deductions that should be paid to the 5 public sector schemes. And in fact, the controller and accountant general department was asked how many months in arrears. They confirmed that we have 9 months in arrears. The second question put to them was how much that will the 9 months we are talking, how much money are we talking about here? And it is over 900 million Ghana cedis. So approximately we are talking about 1 billion Ghana cedis. And I repeat, we are talking about approximately 1 billion Ghana cedis. And the third question was how, whether or not the 3% will be slapped on it, because once government has defaulted payment, the 3% penalty will have to be slapped on it. And so based upon that, we all agree that the money ought to be paid and the penalty also added, so in order to save the pensioners who will be going on retirement because of the time value of money. And the discussions that came up was how the payment could be done, because payment to pay all the money directly to government indicated that it will create some kind of problems to them. And so some will have to be paid directly, and some also paid in T-bills and other related government instruments. So these were the things. Then, if I could probably add the last 3 things, then we have the implementation of the glyco report. Then the fifth one also was the past credit, which we indicated that must be paid at the prevailing TB rate to the various schemes, because currently the money was being held at the Bank of Ghana in the custody of SNIT. And so it must be paid, or the interest being on it should be calculated based upon the prevailing TB rate. The final decision we took was to put in place a 5-member committee, because all the issues that came up involve certain amount of data. And this 5-member committee will do all the reconciliation. They need to bring some of the data, and those that must come from controller will all be added. And then all things being equal, the committee will work on it. And we are expecting that 2 of the items will be done by 27th, and the rest, they will have to revert to us, all things being equal, by the time that we're having a May-Day.
Okay, we'll see how things play out. Thank you, Mr. Musa, for your time and
detail.
God bless you. Bless you too. That's Thomas Musa Tanko. He is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. So live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W93.5 in Y and beyond. And now in campaign trail today, right after the sports news, approximately 6,000 young politicians across the country who had previously defected from the new Petote party to join Alan Chamante's movement for change have announced their return to the NPP. We'll tell you why. Also, right on the back of this, the national supporters of Alan Cash, NOSAC, have strongly criticized the NPP for allegedly attempting to bribe the youth to abandon their support for Alan Chamante's movement for change and join the NPP. We have all of that coming up after this quick break, and we'll get through to the business news with Bismarck Eusa after this quick break, and also the sports news with Bailey Shen. Stay with us here on Hot Edition.
They are coming from all over the country and even beyond. They are coming to take their place at the table of champions. It's not just a race, it is a movement. 3FM presents Tour du Ghana 2024, the ultimate cycling event, a tour of sheer endurance, grit, power, and perseverance. So seasoned riders, professionals, and leisure riders, mark your calendars for May 18, 2024. 3FM Tour du Ghana is back with a thrill. This year, start point is at the Media General premises Kanda to the scenic and Price town in the eastern region. Join us in the fight against climate change, one pedal at a time. To confirm participation, register at a fee of 150.
Hello, good evening. It's time now for the business segment on Hot Edition. Coming up, Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors raises concerns over forex rates used by National Petroleum Authority and a new pricing guidelines. We will hear from its chief executive.
The issue of floor pricing in our market is critical. There are banks and IOTCs that are financing our market. The regulator needs to give confidence and assurance to all those who are.
I am Bismarck Kausa. These stories and others lined up for you. Do stay. Thanks for your company. Now to our very first story. The Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors has raised concerns about the forex rates used by the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, under the new pricing guidelines for oil marketing companies and other players in the industry. The NPA has commenced enforcement of the price floor for petroleum products in the country amid criticisms from some market watchers. Chief Executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Dr. Patrick Ofori, in an interview with 3 Business Though, lauded the initiative, urged the authority to use the Bloomberg foreign exchange rates rather than the Bank of Ghana rates.
The issue of floor pricing in our market is critical. There are banks and IOTCs that are financing our market. The regulator needs to give confidence and assurance to all those who are lending to the sector that they are putting in mechanism in place to protect their investment or the lines that they've given out to these people. But what we have as members is that the indicators or the determinants that have gone into the floor pricing, you look at that, the exchange rate that they are using is 13.23. Clearly, nobody can source dollars currently in the market at that rate. So we will definitely have a concern or issues with that. With another element as premium, you can, irrespective of what the premium is going for a certain value. So if we can have a situation whereby issues of like premium, either a weighted premium that has been submitted to the regulator because they monitor all these variables.
And that was Chief Executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Dr. Patrick Ofori. Moving on, economist Professor Lord Mensah is casting doubt on the current cedi projections, suggesting a year-end inflation rate of up to 14 cedis, 50 pesos to the dollar. This is contrary to earlier forecasts by ratings agency Fitch Solutions, indicating the local currency would end the year at 12 cedis, 25 pesos to the dollar. My colleague Michael Obodu has the rest of the story.
Fitch Solutions' prediction is based on a potential currency strength amid government efforts to restructure commercial debt. Despite this, the cedi has already depreciated by about 11% against the US dollar this year, ranking among the worst-performing currencies globally. Economist Professor Lord Mensah, however, has some reservations with this forecast.
Government finishes negotiations and they start paying coupons and principals that are supposed to mature. That is when we'll see the full-scale demand of the dollar, therefore building up into the price. But I don't think that will, bring in an appreciation. More so, if you look at the economic structure we have not done that much on, exports that will bring in the dollar. And so that projection for me, it's overly ambitious.
Yet, Professor Mensah remains cautious, suggesting the possibility of further depreciation.
At the end of the year, I'm looking around 14 to 14.5 thereabout, because government will be on the market very soon. After the mid-year budget review, and we are done with all our negotiations. Look, they are projecting based on the IMF inflows, but I can tell you the IMF inflows is just going to improve our balance of payment, because we've dipped our balance of payment to, I think, 1.7 months or so. And when it happens like that, any dollar inflow will just have to come and build it up.
He advocates for measures to reduce dollar demand, notably through bolstering local production as a means to stabilize the city's value. Michael Obodu, 3 Business, Accra.
Meanwhile, Acting Chief Executive of Delex Finance, Joe Jackson, cites election year spending as a major challenge to the strength of the cedi, which has already depreciated by 11% year to date.
Typically, in election years, what happens? Governments want to spend to carry favor, especially in an election year where the current government and the current party in power has reached its 8-year term. And we know what 8 year means. 8 years in our past has always meant it's time for a change. And in an attempt to break the 8, as they call it, they may want the pressure to spend is high. Well, our Minister of Finance, Honorable Amin, who's an honorable man, assures us that there will be restraints. Assures us that they are not going to go on a spending spree. I suspect Fitch believes him. And I would want to believe him too. And to say that if he resists the urge to spend, if he resists the urge to spend to break the 8, then just maybe we'll hit 12.25 at the end of the year.
Financial analyst and acting chief executive of Delex Finance, Joe Jackson, ending business segment with me, Business Kausa. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. Sports is up next.
Thank you, Bismarck. It's time for Sport here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shane. Let's start off from the local scene where Samuel Boedu's Brekum Chelsea defeated current Ghana Premier League champions Midiama by 2-0. The result means Brekum Chelsea are 5th on the league log with 41 points, 5 points above Asante Kotoko and 6 points above Hartsfield. Midiama are now 8th on the log with 39 points. Now on the African continent, Dreams FC did the unimaginable in Egypt, coming away with a 0-0 draw in the semi-finals of the CAF Confederation Cup. Now, the second leg will come off on the April 28th in Kumasi. The result has earned a lot of plaudits around the league, including Orlando Rillington, who is the assistant coach of Great Olympics. He believes Dreams are making huge strides that must be emulated, especially by Great Olympics in the future. The Daddy Boys celebrated their 70th anniversary on Sunday.
Sure. That is the agenda of everybody in the Olympics. You know, when you qualify and play in Africa, you grow wings, you get branches outside Ghana. So at least it's a very good idea for us to clinch once again the league and we go to Africa.
That was Orlando Wellington, the assistant coach of Great Olympics. Moving on to European football, Chelsea are sweating over the fitness of Cole Palmer, who missed training earlier today. Palmer is the joint top scorer of the Premier League this season with 20 goals scored, the same as Erling Haaland. Now, Chelsea coach Mauricio Pochettino gave an update on the fitness of his young star.
I don't believe that can be involved, but we need to assess him tomorrow and then we will decide. But even if he will be good tomorrow, maybe he's not in a condition to play. I hope he's recover from this situation and as soon as possible can be involved again with the team. With and without, always we believe that we can win. The most important is the team. The most important is the collective. Of course, he is an important part of the team. He's doing fantastic for us, but I think that is Chelsea and of course plenty of players that can perform and to do the job also.
And the news regarding.
That was Mauricio Pochettino, the head coach of Chelsea. Chelsea will be playing against Arsenal in the Premier League on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Of course, Arsenal are currently on top of the league table with 74 points so far. Now, to some other stories, John Terry and Andy Cole have become the latest inductees to the Premier League Hall of Fame. Cole, who played for Newcastle before joining Manchester United, won 5 titles under Sir Alex Ferguson at Old Trafford, while Terry, the most successful captain in Chelsea's history, lifted the trophy on 5 occasions. And the pair joined Ashley Cole, the former Arsenal and Chelsea defender, to be part of the Hall of Fame's 2024 intake after he was included earlier this year. To our final story, Barcelona president Joan Laporta says he will not rule out taking legal action over Lamine Yamal's phantom goal against Real Madrid. Teenager Yamal thought he had put Barcelona ahead 3-2 at the Bernabeu, but Real keeper Andre Lunin, who was behind the goal line, clawed the ball away. The visitors were adamant the ball had crossed the line, but the referee ruled it had not crossed the line. With no goal line technology in La Liga, the video assistant referee could not prove that the ball had conclusively crossed the line. Barcelona went on to lose the match 3-2 after Jude Bellingham scored the winner in the first minute of added time. Laporta says the club will request the audio and video footage from the technical refereeing committee at the Spanish FA to determine whether the goal should have stood or not. That brings an end to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Beatrice, and of course, Beatrice is on standby with some more details.
Thank you very much, Billy Shan, for bringing us sports here. You're still here on Hot Edition. Now, you know, onion traders at Kwadaso in Ashanti region will have to begin adjusting themselves to their new place of doing business after being forcefully evicted. A joint military police task force on Monday enforced the eviction directive issued by the Ashanti Regional Security Council after a series of resistance from the traders in the past. Ibrahim Abubakar has more in the following report.
After plying his trade at the Kwadaso Onion Market for more than 11 years, Alhassan Azure is now forced to start afresh in a new place. The 13-year-old Onion Market has been demolished after traders resisted waves of evacuation plans. The Ashanti Regional Security Council, in a statement, cited security risk for motorists, pedestrians, and the traders themselves, alongside vehicular traffic during peak hours, as reasons for the relocation of the market to Achuma Techiman.
Frankly speaking, we are not saying we won't relocate, but the issue at hand is the place is too small to contain all of us, and at least with our business, we deal with big trucks because they are trailer trucks that bring our onion from Niger to Ghana so that we offload. So even per this current place, if there are times we have issues with parking, which results in traffic. So per where they are giving us, in the long run, it is going to pose that same problem.
Under the supervision of the military and police, the entire market structure, accommodating over 2,000 traders, was flattened within 3 hours. The traders admitted they've been served eviction notice, but raised concern about the adequacy of the new marketplace to contain all of them.
They've met us, inform us number of times, but giving us dates that we should relocate. But in fact, where they told us that they will relocate us to, in fact, that place is smaller as compared to where we are living now.
While some of the onion traders have accepted their new market environment and have moved to secure their trading spots, others are bent on trading along the shoulders of the road and close to the old market. Though the traders say the new marketplace cannot contain all of them, the Regional Security Council is bent on relocating each and every trader here before it addresses their concerns. Ibrahim Abubakar, Kwadaso, Kumasi.
Ibrahim Abubakar with that report. But you're welcome to Campaign Trail, and let's start off from the camp of the NDC. And the next NDC administration will reconsider the distribution of sanitary pads for female learners of both basic and senior high schools. These are the words of the NDC flag bearer John Mahama, who has been assuring the National Association of Graduate Teachers and other teacher unions who have asked him to consider it as a matter of urgency if he assumes power. The policy then under the erstwhile NDC administration was heavily criticized by the MPP, then in opposition. Take a listen.
The provision of free sanitary pads for female learners in both basic and senior high schools was initiated under the erstwhile NDC administration. If you remember, our opponents now in government mocked us and called it the pad loan. For you, the unions, to have raised this as an issue in the concerns that you have presented to us means that our policy on sanitary pads was well thought through and needs to be looked at again. The NDC policy of infrastructure development will again be pursued vigorously to decongest the large class sizes. Abandoned infrastructure in the basic and senior high schools and TVET schools, including the famous E-blocks, will receive priority attention under a new NDC administration.
John Mahama there. Still on Campaign Trail, we go to Alan Tremanting and his party, the Movement for Change, has issued a statement. I'll read that to you. It's titled, "A Failed Attempt by the New Patriotic Party to Use Money to Induce the Youth." It says, "We are aware of the clandestine operations of the New Patriotic Party to undermine the candidature of Alan Tremanting. This time, in a full display of minocracy, there have been blatant attempt to use money as a tool to pull young people from the Movement for Change. This is defining of the awful state of the New Patriotic Party, who are forced in their panic mode to stoop so low. Let us emphasize that the true young people of this revolution cannot be bought. We, the youth, are convinced in the leadership of the Alan Tremanting and will not trade our integrity and convictions on the altar of incompetence and corruption. The duopoly of NPP and NDC will no longer be allowed to take young people for granted through the disgraceful act of financial inducement rather than providing solutions for job creation and opportunities for young people. The death of intelligence of the NPP has to be questioned as they are celebrating the fact that they have used money to persuade poster-sticking and noise-making babies to join them. If the NPP thinks they have made any iota of progress, then indeed they must be a laughing stock, because the babies they claim to have pulled with money have zero influence at the edge of the gutters of our structures. They don't even have the mettle to convince their own parents, much more the Ghanaian voter. So that's coming from the camp of Alan Tremanting. There's still some more on this, and it is signed by Luther King Jr., who is convener for this youth group supporting the Alan Tremanting Movement for Change. But there's more on this very issue, particularly regarding Alan Kwejo Tremanting and indeed the third force, Alfred.
In fact, talk about that. And even before they issued a statement, this statement from the Alan Tremanting's team on this attempt by, according to them, the NPP to get some of its members, that's the youth, to defect back to the NPP. You know, a number of the Movement for Change supporters or were members of the New Patriotic Party. What we do know today is that there's been a press conference addressed by some young men who describe themselves as the persons who have defected from the Movement for Change. In fact, according to them, approximately 6,000 young politicians across the country who had previously defected from the NPP to join Alan Tremanting's Movement for Change have announced their return to the NPP. Now, led by the former NPP parliamentary candidate, the aspirant for Adenta, Alfred Abebio Kumi, the group admitted leaving the NPP was a mistake. At a press conference held in Accra earlier today, Abebio Kumi publicly acknowledged their error and declared their renewed support for the NPP flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Meanwhile, this statement has also come in strongly criticizing the NPP for allegedly attempting to bribe the youth to abandon their support for Alan Chimantain's movement for change. So in the midst of all this, what are the chances, and then also the persons who have been looking to the crystal ball, who understand how politics in this country works, how they see Alan Chimantain's movement for change? You sat with Professor Stephen Adai earlier today, and then the matters about the third force and matters arising came up. Let's hear from Professor Stephen Adai on Alan Chimantain, the third force conversation, and these issues we're hearing now.
There is a third force already. In fact, there are two coalitions which I hope they will merge. But I think that Alan Chimantain and Abu Sakara. I must confess that young man, he's not too young. I like his style generally. I must confess about this one. Have come up as a third force. The likelihood that they may win may not be that high. Why? Because in MPP and NDC, people have entrenched interests. They see it, say, you see, I'm not thinking about Ghana. Most of the people who vote, the core people, because of Ghana, but if NDC is in power, if NPP is to, we continue our gravy trade. So, therefore, it's not easy. But I think that a third force has emerged. I'm expecting, my desire is that they will capture about, say, 40 seats.
In Parliament.
In Parliament. Then, even if they don't, they would then be, you see, one person who comes from just 5 miles from his constituency, 5 miles from my constituency, one person is making a wave of difference in our hung Parliament. I think that to expect...
You mean the independent candidate from Fomena?
Yes. My village is only 5 miles from Fomena.
Andrew Esiama?
Yes. You like mentioning names too much. That's like... Anyway, on a more serious note, basically, I think we must challenge the status quo. And a third force will be very good for Ghana. But the likelihood that a third force can win election in come December is a very formidable one.
But they could in the coming election if they work towards it, as in not December 2024.
Yes. But my wish is that they will have sufficient seats to really force certain actions.
So for you, the focus, which Abu Sakara himself has said, is to, and I think Alan as well, is to get some seats in Parliament first, and then they can work towards a presidential. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Because it would be too ambitious to think that they can win the presidency. But all things are possible. If something happens and Ghanaians get so mad, but that likelihood is very, very, very slim.
Prof, your final word, and if you could chip in just a little bit about the power sector, if you would.
Well, the power sector is quite unfortunate. I don't think, let's be very careful, it is not as bad as the Dunso days. But if we don't, it can only get worse. So the first thing is that to look at if there are bottlenecks which are not allowing us to use the existing capacity to the fullest, must be addressed. But in the long run, we must have a national strategic agenda. For example, I just checked, I didn't know that you were going to ask this question, but just this week I checked what proportion of power is used by household, and it's 47%. We can easily reduce that one by 20%, which will immediately ease power for industry.
If we turn our lights off when we are not using them.
Oh, but that one, we won't. It's very difficult to police it. We can go solar. I think that immediately government should allow all solar panels and anything to do with it import free. Because in the end, the country and the government will win. In my house, for the past 3 days, I have not switched on even 5 minutes of ECG. I'm totally on solar for 10 meg. You see, unfortunately, I did it just before the crisis of 2022. So it all cost me some few tens of thousands. While today, I asked for it, it's going to about 100,000. So we must have a strategy to make sure that we have a long-term solution, and the efficiency of UCB has to improve.
So that's Professor Stephen Adair there on Campaign Trail here on your Election Command Center. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is your Election Command Center, and there's Campaign Trail every day on Hot Edition from 6:15 p.m. to 6:30 here on your Election Command Center. I want to say thank you so much for staying with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. The story is brought to you today. If you just joined us, just a quick recall. Electricity Company of Ghana to operate a single bank account for revenue collection after reportedly flouting earlier directives to close its multiple bank accounts, 61 of them so far.
Also, Ghana confident of securing an MOU with bilateral lenders by May to pave way for third tranche release of $360 million by the IMF.
The Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG, is today demanding an immediate implementation of a 2022 compulsory arbitration awards by the National Labour Commission, which grants new conditions of service to members of CTAG.
We also brought you excerpts of that interview with former rector of GIMPA, Stephen Adair, firing back at Yoko, challenging it to go after Roads Minister, a former Roads Minister, instead of dismissing his claims and reporting half-truths to Ghanaians.
Thank you very much for staying with us here on Hot Edition. Make a date with us same time tomorrow. And join me at 10 p.m. today on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. I am Alfred Ocansey.
My name is Beatrice. Thank you very much for joining us today.
FM 92.7.
So baby, what makes you feel protected and gives you peace of mind?
My partner.